Yay! Welcome to Story Time with Boots. I got my main man, Fred and Butter, Fred X, First Down Freddy, Fourth Down Freddy. Fred is on a number of shows right now, doing a lot of good things with the Edge of Philly Sports Network. Those guys always out there putting out good content. You do anything with Fred and Butter anymore?
Not really. It's kind of on the side. I kind of picked up with them, and they allow me to do all four sports, so I kind of just roll with it there.
Absolutely.
Freddie Burns, too.
Freddie Burns. What was the other one you were doing?
I still go on Philly Press Box as well.
Press Box.
We'll be doing a live show coming in April. They got me into this. They gave me a shot.
They were your step stool, right?
Yes, they were.
So Fred and I, what I want to do is we are going to get into our recap from our NFL season picks from the beginning of the year. We're also going to talk some local sports with the Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, and Flyers. But before we get into it, make sure you check out our friend to the show, Your Super, for all your superfood needs, protein powders. They also have a new detox bundle that you can check out. I will post the links so you can get your 15% discount. All right, so let's hop in, Fred. I think one of the reasons I wanted to do this show is because it doesn't matter what network you watch, ESPN, Fox, whoever, wherever you listen to your sports, everybody always makes their predictions at the end of the year, and then you don't really get much follow-up on it. Every once in a while, they'll do like a flashback if it's something big. But I think people who do sports got to be a little accountable.
They do.
You know what I mean? You just see it too often that nobody's really accountable for their picks. Not that you can really do anything, but let's see how they pan out. So we're going to go back. We're going to talk about some of the fantasy picks that we had, our predictions for how the NFL season was going to play out, who were going to be the division leaders, who was going to make it to the playoff, our sleepers. We had some good picks. We had some misses. One of the things I want to start out with is, one, we like the Ravens. They came out of nowhere, and you liked the 49ers.
Yes.
So very, very solid pick on your part because I'll be honest, I like them, but I did not think they were going to make it to the Super Bowl.
I don't know if I picked them that far. I had them winning the division and a top 2 seed. But I thought they definitely had the shot. Actually, on your show, I didn't have the balls to do it.
To do it?
Because I thought, they're definitely going to think I'm blowing smoke if I say that. But I did say the division.
I had a lot of people that didn't think the Ravens were really going to do shit.
I'm with the other people.
Yeah. So
you nailed that.
It's, we had misses, too. Like, I think you liked the Browns in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh got decimated by injuries. We both liked the Falcons. They fell apart. Also, one of the things that we said, too, was Drew Brees. We thought this was going to be his decline.
That didn't happen.
My man stepped up to the plate like Tom Brady. I think what we were saying, too, was we were thinking his arm is diminishing. And maybe a little bit, but I don't know, man. We might have been wrong there. Not that bad. Yeah, he looked pretty good. Michael Thomas, it was an absolute savage this year. I'll give you credit, too. I know you like the Packers this year, which I had them kind of sneaking into the playoffs type of thing. They proved to be a powerhouse, and they won the conference, right? Is that right, Packers?
They won their division, yeah.
They won their division,
and then they went to the NFC Championship and lost to the 49ers.
Right, okay.
20-1 odds they were, right?
20-1. 20-1 Super Bowl odds, so that wasn't a bad pick. Now, for the NFC East playoffs, for the NFC playoffs, I had the Eagles coming out of the East. I had the Bears coming out of the Central, Saints coming out of the South, Rams coming out of the West, and I had the Packers and Cowboys as my wild card teams. You had the Packers coming out of the Central, the Eagles out of the East, Falcons out of the South, and 49ers was your good pick out of the West there, with the Vikings and Panthers as your wild cards. So not too far off. Panthers were a miss. For me, the Cowboys were a miss. They were right there with the Eagles. They started out the season hot, and that was a little scary. I remember watching a lot of ESPN polls, and they were number one in the ESPN power rankings.
But they were playing like trash teams, man.
Yeah, exactly. They were playing all the shit teams, and they were getting all the hype, and who was going to stop the Cowboys. I guess I bought into the hype a little bit just because they had that offensive line, and if they could utilize Zeke behind that offensive line, and Dak just managed the game, and their defense looked better, then that's what was a little scary. I was like, oh, shit, did they put this together? Are they going to play the brand of football that the Cowboys should probably play with their lineup? And then, in true Cowboys fashion, Jason Garrett crumbles the team. Jerry Jones, he can't be out of the limelight too long to get in his own way. So
it's so enjoyable that way, too, as Eagles fans.
I love it.
Just watching it crumble and burn.
Crash and burn. There's nothing more enjoyable to an Eagles fan. I don't even know sometimes. I think the Eagles fans may enjoy the Cowboys' downfall more than the Eagles winning at times.
Especially now that we got one.
Especially now that we got one.
It is fun. You get 2 games a week, really.
Yeah.
Because you're avidly rooting against them.
Especially if you have that little bit of doubt in the back of your mind that the Eagles might not be a Super Bowl contender, and they definitely had their struggles this year where people were ready to jump off the bridge. I think that a lot of people just enjoyed the Dallas downfall, maybe more than whatever Eagles win they could scrape together from week to week. So that's who we had for the NFC. AFC, I had the Pats, the Ravens, the Jags. I liked. They were a disappointment. Foles went out early and then got benched, so I was dead wrong there.
Now he's rumored to be traded. They're trying to trade him.
Get rid of that salary.
Yeah.
I wonder who would take him on.
I
don't know. Maybe the Colts.
Didn't they
with what's his name there? The head coach.
Be the Colts.
Old Eagles connection.
It's not a bad
Frank
idea.
Reich.
Yeah.
They're definitely.
I feel like they just grabbed someone, or there's someone in there. Maybe a rumor.
I had a feeling that like Tom Brady would go there, and then I thought twice about it because I'm like, no, he's definitely going to San Diego, or
I think he's coming home. Actually,
you think he's going back to New England?
Because they legally can't talk about it yet. So if they and really get into it, and then the salary cap is supposed to expand like 10, 12 million, so they can't have a real conversation until they know if they have the extra 10, 12 million to do the deal.
What about the rumors that he sold his house in Boston area?
I mean,
his trainer or whoever.
I don't think that necessarily means he's gone. I didn't hear about the trainer, but I don't think that necessarily means he's gone. He may not be living there all the time.
I just have a feeling he's from the West Coast. Who's looking for a quarterback right now? It's just really San Diego and California.
I can see San Diego. It makes sense, totally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If the 49ers didn't have Garoppolo, I could definitely see that. That was his childhood team. And I just think with the supermodel wife, something about being out West Coast probably suits them better. Giselle.
Ugh. It's good to be Tom Brady, man. So, yeah, Pats, Ravens, Jags, Chiefs. I had the Browns and the Chargers, 2 duds. And I'm surprised that I did that with the Chargers because I think Phillip Rivers is the biggest fraud. I think he has a duck arm. I've never been a fan of Phillip Rivers. Seems like a good guy. He's got like 800 kids.
You ever hear him curse?
No. He does the Brian Dawkins.
All he does is say, like, weird words.
Like the dog. What did the dog always just say? Doggone it? Or something like that?
Yeah, doggone it.
Watch old highlight videos.
Yep.
It's the funniest thing hearing him say doggone it 800 times.
What the fudge?
Yeah. Phillip Rivers, well, he's really religious, right?
Yeah. But he'll talk crap in his, like, weird, nice, like,
it's
verbiage.
So corny, man.
Nice curses, I guess?
How could you talk shit that way?
I
would just look at him.
Like D linemen are looking at him like, wait, what?
Yeah.
No, you're serious. And he's like, you can see the anger in his eye. They're like, you're crazy, man.
Yeah, that doesn't fly. Browns, Chargers, he's done number 1. But secondly, he never was the type of quarterback that could go over the hump. He's the guy that would have a lot of stats. Kind of reminds me of, I think Matt Stafford might be a little bit better version or right there with him. But they find a way to lose the game and then pad their stats because they're always trailing and trying to make a comeback. So they're the type of guys that will throw for 370 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. You know what I mean? And those 2 picks will be at crucial times to fuck their team.
Yeah, early on in his career, I compared him to Marino statistically, but these last 4 years, though, I'm more along the lines with what you're saying. You know, I thought he was a Hall of Famer, and now I'm kind of on the side of no, because Marino, you know, he wouldn't really cost his team the games. He just didn't have the pieces around him.
Right.
You know
because, I mean, look at some of the teams and the players that Rivers has had around him. He's had stud defenses. He's had arguably one of the top 5 running backs in LT.
Yeah.
Good receivers in Keenan Allen, one of the best tight ends in the game for a long time, and
Gates.
Antonio Gates. So he's had the pieces. He's had the defense and what's needed, and he could never do it. Couldn't beat those Patriots teams, whoever, So you had the Pats, the Steelers, the Texans. You had the Chiefs as the 1 seed, which was a good call. They ended up snagging that away, right?
Yep.
And you also had the Chargers and the Raiders.
Raiders were close. They were still in contention the final week of the season.
Yeah.
So I was actually pulling for them almost like the Eagles because of this show. And I'm like, come on.
You remembered that, huh?
Yeah, because I actually picked that on Edge of Philly, too, and I looked like I was crazy. But then as the season went on, I'm like, I'm telling you, they're going, them and the 49ers, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, Chucky's a
and
good
Brown,
coach.
I didn't know Brown was going to be gone
right.
either.
You couldn't have predicted that craziness. So who knows what would have happened if he would have stayed and actually, and if he was a normal wide receiver and actually played. Because you had him also as one of your fantasy guys that you really liked, too.
Yeah, he really shit the bed for me.
Yeah. We both liked James Washington from Pittsburgh, too.
Yeah.
I made a note of
He ended
that.
up getting cut?
Yeah, it wasn't what we thought, you know what I mean? He definitely, the sad thing is, he had the opportunity, too, with all the players that went down and really just couldn't make anything of it. We both wanted Clowney. Unfortunately, that turned out to be a huge mistake, in my opinion, for the Eagles for various reasons. One, they could have used the help. But two, he was the one that took out Wentz in the playoff game and essentially, I think, cost him the playoff game.
I definitely did.
Yeah.
Wentz was like in his zone.
Right. What was it? It was pretty close at that time, too, I think.
It was like 7 minutes into the first
7 minutes
quarter.
into the first quarter. And that was definitely a dirty hit. At first, when I first saw it, I was like, it could have just been speed of the game, like not. And then I saw a full field shot view of the play, and now what is he, about 6'4", 6'5"? He specifically went at a downward angle at his helmet with his helmet.
Oh, definitely.
No doubt about it, man, 100%. That was a scumbag play. I'm a little disappointed that none of the Eagles did anything. I think Jason Peters was the only one that said anything, and all he said was that was a dirty play. And Clowney said something back like wasn't intentional or something to that effect. But, so Clowney cost him twice.
Question for you. Would you sign him in free agency?
Off the top of my head, right away I lean towards yes. But
I think I do too.
I wonder how, if there's any animosity in the locker room. I don't know. Wentz didn't seem to think or have a problem with it, or any of the players didn't seem to have a problem with it. I don't know if that's the case behind closed doors. But if you're just asking me off the top of my head, I'd still get him.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean the guy's just he's a game changer, man.
I think Wentz would just let it roll off, and then if he makes a couple plays, they would forget about that.
Be
quick.
back to normal. And I think what he said, even if it's not true, which I don't think it is true, but him saying, it was unintentional. I didn't.
Yeah, what's he going to say? Yeah, I tried to.
Right. Well, he could be like, what's his name, who got suspended for the end of the year for throwing a helmet. He basically made it seem like what's his name was using a racial slur at him for the Steelers.
Oh, that was ridiculous.
Yeah. Well,
how does that show up weeks
later? None of the players on the field said that ever happened. So you could have took that route, that woe is me route.
Media would have ran with that too.
Right.
Wentz is now racist too.
Wentz is a racist. Yeah. So I would still take Clowney, but I don't think the Eagles are going to get him. One of the things, and we'll get into the Eagles, they still suffer big time from lack of a pass rush. As serviceable as Graham is and inspirational and team leader, he still doesn't really kind of get there that often.
I agree.
How many sacks did he have?
He had like
6 this year.
I think he might have had 8, but he had 4 or 5 in one game.
Yeah.
So you got to throw that Jets game out. That ruins the averages. And then Barnett
up against the scrub.
Yeah.
And Barnett, man, I was never. It's easy to say now, but I was never the biggest fan of Barnett. I'm sick of the Eagles drafting these guys with the slowest 40 times, with the weakest bench press rep at the end. They're constantly doing it. Who was the other guy they drafted that was a former quarterback that lasted, I think, 2 or 3 years and never really saw the field? Michael, he was a couple years before that. The end. He was another one that would.
Like what round?
He went in the first or second round. He was in college. He was a quarterback that converted to D end. Had awful 40 time. Awful like they said. Oh, he's got to gain weight. Quotations. He's got to his strength wasn't there. Same thing with Barnett. Barnett was slow. He's not the strongest guy. Why do we keep give me those freaks? Now, obviously, you get those freaks typically in the first round, but you can find some of them that fall a little later.
It's with every position too. They always got to take the weird person,
right?
Like they're gonna have a receiver available here at their pick this year, and they're gonna take the one out of Colorado, the off one that everyone's could pan out great.
Overthink it or try to get
Metcalf.
too cute with it.
Why not? Why take Arcega-Whiteside? Just take Metcalf. He's there. He fell.
I had those Twitter. Everybody was nobody was really feeling that when I said it. Oh no, the guy was a freak. He can only run the one route. He runs the one route that we desperately need. He runs that deep fly, and the guy runs a 4.40. And that's what the Eagles needed. And look what he did. He tore us up with the Seahawks there.
That's why we lost.
And that was the story.
Besides Wentz, obviously.
That was the story of the year. The Redskins receiver tore a new hole in our ass every time he played us. McLaren.
Right. And whenever we don't pick him, someone else picks that weird one that pans out.
And he just butt-fucks the shit out of us.
I'm with you, dude. I'm sick of it. Just pick the obvious guy.
So here were our picks, speaking of picks, for the Super Bowl. These were our prop bets that we liked in the beginning of the year. Teams to win the Super Bowl. We liked the Chiefs at 6-1. Obviously, that would have paid out. Eagles at 14-1. Ravens at 40-1. Falcons at 40-1. Those were the four I liked. I said bet 100 on each, and at worst case you win $200 because you spent $400. And the lowest odds were the Chiefs at 6-1, which would have cashed. Obviously, I did play the Ravens. In the back of my mind, if the Eagles didn't win, I was hoping that would pull through. Fred also liked the Chiefs, Eagles, and he also liked the Packers at 20-1, which came in pretty good. So we both would have or should have cashed there.
And we were in it till the end, which is cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we had 3 playoff teams to start the playoffs. Can't ask for much more.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
Feeds that itch.
Feeds the itch, yeah. So you always have that if you're, like I said, if your home team is in it or not in it, you always have the other teams in the back of your mind.
Because if they weren't, we certainly would have put another bet in.
Exactly. You got to cover. You gotta have your enjoyment either way, right? You also like prop bets. Deshaun Watson MVP at 17-1. David Johnson, Leonard Fournette. I think it was to win the rushing title at 25-1, and AB, which obviously we know his story. 25-1 to win, I think, receiving yards.
Yeah, most receiving yards. All of them were pretty much busts. Watson had an okay year, but not MVP.
Not good. Yeah, I think he's another one who has talent. It gets in his own way, too. He'll make a couple mistakes in the game that cost the team. I'm not a big, was it Bill O'Brien? I'm not a big Bill O'Brien fan.
He might be more the issue.
I think so. I think he's holding them back.
Yeah, remember when, not to cut you off, when you made me think of it as you said it, Randall had all that talent, but then he had Buddy Ryan as the head coach who didn't care about offense, and then he had
defense.
And then he had Kotite trying to explain to him offense, and that just was not. And then you get him in Minnesota, give him a couple receivers and a coach that knows, and he's MVP of the league.
Up. Yeah. Well, I guess Randy Moss helps with that too.
Yeah, he did just have to throw it up.
Wait, was Randall? He was before Culpepper, right?
Who? Randall, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the year
they
went all the way, and Gary Anderson had not missed a field goal all year, and then he missed it to win the game in the NFC Championship.
Against the Falcons,
with
right?
With the Dirty Bird, yeah.
Wow, that's right.
And then the Falcons got smoked by the Broncos with Elway.
Yeah, that's a shame because they were a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
So fantasy real quick. Quarterbacks that I liked, top 5, Mahomes. Obviously, that's an easy pick. Goff, who absolutely blew, so I was completely off there. I even drafted him in my own leagues. Luckily, in both leagues, I took Ravens Lamar Jackson as a backup. And by week 2 or 3, because I like the Ravens, so I took him in both leagues as my backup. By, I think, week 2, he was starting.
That was great.
Yeah.
Great move. I was very skeptical of him, and I'll eat crow on him, man.
To be perfectly honest, I'm one of these guys. I saw a couple things. I watched 1 or 2 Ravens preseason games, believe it or not. And I had followed up on NFL Network or watched a few things, and that's basically what I was basing it off of, my love for the Ravens, and it actually panned out. Brees did well. I had Baker Mayfield. He was another fucking dud. I thought with that receiving core and the running backs. He was finally going to put it together. And I had Deshaun Watson, and Wentz as my sleeper. So you had similar quarterbacks. I think you had Watson, Mahomes, you had Matt Ryan, Newton, Wentz, and your Garoppolo was your sleeper.
Yeah.
So let me see who actually was the fantasy scoring leaders for quarterback. I think it was number 1, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, Prescott, Russell Wilson, Watson, and Winston, which is crazy because Winston would have like 6 interception games, but then still throw 400 yards because they were playing catch-up.
Yeah.
That just goes to show you the NFL. You can't really buy into all these stats this year.
He got eye surgery done.
Oh, is that what's going to help him?
It's like the coach is like, they would ask me after the game, Bruce Arians is like, I don't know what to tell you. There was a man there. He threw it to the guy. Like,
yeah.
Like there's
He's like, I'm done trying to make up excuses anymore. And he has 2 beasts of receivers. I think Godwin was in top 5 for receivers for fantasy.
Oh, dude, he was an animal.
He was number 2. Yeah, he was number 2 in points for fantasy behind Michael Thomas.
And then he had Evans there, too.
So for running backs, we like the usual suspects, Zeke, McCaffrey, who had an unbelievable season. Barkley was a little disappointing. Kamara was definitely disappointing. And I had
letdown.
Yeah.
Kamara killed me.
A lot of people took him number 1.
I had him in keeper leagues.
Well, that stings. James Conner, he got hurt. And then my sleeper, I had Sanders and Geis from the Skins who got hurt and didn't really do much. But Sanders came on pretty strong.
Yeah.
Your backs were the different backs that you had were Lev Bell, but the
not
top,
a killer. He did okay. You know what I mean? He wasn't like bad, but he wasn't a top 5 back.
That Jets team is god awful. I think their line blew. The poor guy was trying. I mean, he still had just
David
thinking
Johnson's
back. David Johnson, that's who it was.
Yeah.
David Johnson, wow. Hey, how about him getting replaced?
I know. And Drake was going off for a little bit.
He was going off, yeah. He had some monstrous games. The top 5 ended up being Christian McCaffrey was number 1, Aaron Jones for Green Bay number 2, Zeke number 3, Eckler, I find that hard to believe, out in L.A. was number 4.
He was going off.
Yeah, but towards the end he started.
They started splitting, but they still were both putting up like I think
decent numbers.
Gordon would have like 12 and he would have 20 or something like that.
And then Derrick Henry was 5, and typical Derrick Henry, I think he started coming on towards the end of the season again. Cook was 6. So it's just surprising. And Barkley was 10th. He was a lot of consensus number 1 pick. So that was a little – I took him number 1, so that was disappointing for me too. Tight ends, nothing really to write home about. We had Ertz, Kelsey, Kittle. I had O.J. Howard and Delaney Walker. I had a sleeper of Jason Witten. And you had the same top 3 as usual, but you also had T.J. Hawkinson and Mike Gesicki.
Gesicki did nothing. Hawkinson had a few good weeks.
He did. I think he started off the season pretty good.
Yeah. The first week he had 2 touchdowns. I'm like, ooh, I hit this one.
You thought you were right there.
And then he kind of died down, came back, had another good week.
He was
average.
Was like the top 3, Kelsey, Ertz, and Kittle, did finish within the top 5. Ertz just slipped to number 4. Darren Waller from Oakland came in at number 3. And then Mark Andrews, which helped me out, I picked him up on the waiver wire, was the 5th rated tight end this year.
I grabbed Waller as well.
Waller, yeah, he had some really big games. So that was the recap. We had some hits. We had some misses. I would say Fred and Butter's biggest hit would definitely be picking the 49ers.
Yeah.
The way you did. A lot of people like them. You know, in my opinion, I didn't see them going that far. And then for me, I would say it was probably picking the Ravens. Biggest misses, maybe be AB for you or the Browns and Pittsburgh.
I don't think I picked the Browns. I was a Browns hater.
Oh, that's right. No, you didn't like the Browns. I'm sorry. I even wrote that. Maybe it was Pittsburgh. Maybe for both of us, we both really like the Falcons.
That's my miss.
Yeah, so that's it.
1-7 at one point.
And then they beat us.
And I would keep on my show.
Their one was that they beat us, bastards.
Yeah, or week 2 or something. And I would keep picking them every week, being stubborn, like they're going to – and then I finally went against them, and then they won that week.
And then they won that week.
And I'm like, what?
Falcons, what the fuck happened to them? And it's so crazy. Every year they have the talent, but they can never put it together.
I think the coach is staying.
That's crazy.
Like because they went on a little bit of a run. Like they were like four in a row or something at the end. 3 in a row. Whatever. What a disappointment.
Fuck them. So anyway, let's transition into a little hometown flavor with the Eagles and talk about just the season overall. And we could start from the beginning because it all started at the beginning of the year. And if we're talking about misses, you and I both had them in the Super Bowl. Homer picks. I mean, they had the talent. A lot of people, a lot of national news media was picking them on paper. They were paper champions, I guess, like the Vince Young year. What was it? What were they saying?
Dream Team.
Dream Team, right. I guess what we didn't foresee is that a lot of the team is aging in the wrong areas, and they're also very young in the wrong areas. I guess that's easy to say, but very young and inexperienced at corner. Getting the old line, which has always been a very good strength of ours, is definitely starting to get up there. And then not to mention you have the coaching moves. That's moving forward for this year. No offensive coordinator. We swapped out the wide receivers coach, which I think was a must. So let's start there. How do you feel that Jeffrey Lurie, this is what's been talked about a lot in local media, overstepped Doug, is how a lot of people are putting it, and fired the wide receivers coach? What are your thoughts on that? Because people were going back and forth.
Well, they actually moved him the offensive coordinator, the wide receivers coach. So it was you mean Groh and the wide receivers coach?
Yeah.
So they fired the offensive coordinator and the wide receivers coach, yeah. After Peterson came out and said they will be back next year.
Right.
Like immediately the next day.
Immediately the next day. So I don't know if that was Peterson just fucking up the press conference and having a huge mistake, or that was maybe them still within the works to where Lurie just overstepped him and just said, I don't give a fuck what was said in the press conference. This is what's going down.
I think Doug thought he had a little more clout than he did. And I think he thought that those guys were going to be back based on what happened at the end of the year. So he was confident enough to make those comments. But when he sat down with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, and he's a very, numbers-driven guy, you know what I mean? He probably brought out the math, and they went through it and showed, okay, well, what changed? Why did we get better at this point in the year? And they probably came to a conclusion that it wasn't because of the coaching staff, which it definitely wasn't.
Well, the wide receivers, they got worse, in my opinion. You added more talent, but the production got worse. If you looked at drop balls, if you just looked at route running, you looked at rookie wide receivers that when they got on the field looked absolutely lost, didn't know what route to run.
Hopping. Balls are being thrown and they're hopping out of the way.
You're looking at veteran wide receivers on this team who are supposed to be impact players. Nelson Aguilar, who can't track a ball, also look lost. This is a guy who's making almost $10 million a year. A wide receiver core that almost every receiver makes $10 million a year or more out of your starting three wide receivers. And the production that you get for that, and they bring on, everybody was, I guess, wishful thinking with D-Jack. They knew, they're like, all right, he is aging. He is very injury prone, especially over the last couple years. But fuck it, we'll bring D-Jack back. He was the man with us. He's what we need. He's a burner. He can take the top off the field. And everybody just kind of bought in too much to that excitement without still remembering, all right, let me scale it back. This guy is very injury prone. What are we actually going to get production-wise out of him? When he's on the field, he can produce, but how much is he going to be on the field?
I think that's where we put I agree. We put our eggs too much in that basket. We found out that speed was the main thing that we were lacking, because you look at all these other teams across the league, and the quarterbacks don't have to put the ball on the money every like as pinpoint accurate as it had to be with how bad our receivers were speed-wise, because there's speed all over the field. We just look slow, and losing D-Jacks, I think we expected to lose them for like 4 games,
right,
not for the season. And for them to not have a backup plan or draft a backup plan,
well, speaking of that, crazy. Whose blunder was it with the whole D-Jacks hernia thing? Most people, hindsight is 20/20, but when that first happened, he could have got the surgery right away and recovered a lot quicker and been back in a position to play. Instead, it got delayed. He wound up re-injuring it, and then really fucked him for the end of the season. Was that a D-Jack thing, do you think, or do you think that was a medical staff, Eagles?
This is an opinion of mine. I think it was a D-Jacks thing wait, but I think it's due to all the injuries the Eagles medical staff has screwed up in the past. So his guys are probably like, yo, X, Y, and Z has happened to this player. You can go down the list. Start Wentz with the back. Like, he was playing games he shouldn't have been playing. You know, there's players that Manuel Acho tweets out stuff. There's different players that have problems.
A lot of players.
And he probably was like, hey, he's all into his health and naturally healing. So he said, hey, this is the route we can go best for us to get back. I do think the one problem is that the Eagles medical staff let him back on the field early. Like, why play him in that Bears game? You had another bye week, so essentially you would have had 2 weeks
for him to recover.
And that might have been the difference because he tweaked it, and then that was it. You're done, you know?
That was all she wrote.
And why not not to get off on this tangent, knowing what you know about Deshaun Jackson, regardless if he comes back or not, no move was made to bring in any type of speed. There were people out there that I at least could see, okay, take a shot here. Oh, it didn't work out. All right, at least I know you went out. Like J.J. Nelson. He's a spurner. I mean, he's on no roster. There's a reason he's on no roster. But even still, like, why not take a shot?
Even more so, Greg Ward came up and played fantastic, filling in spots. He may not be a long-term solution, but the guy gave you some great heart, some great effort, and he was the best receiver, sadly, that we had on the field in a lot of those scenarios. Whose fault is it that he came up given? Now think how bad and dreadful the wide receiver position was all year for him to come up that late. So who gets the smack on the ass for that? Is that fucking Doug? Who is that literally you have to wait that long? You don't recognize this guy's talent. We're in dire straits to bring him up that late.
Ultimately, I think that's why Walsh and Groh got fired, because when they came down to it, he reports to his coaches. You can't just overstep all your coaches. You have to ask who should be on the roster, who should not.
Who we going with?
This, that. And when he gets for 5 weeks straight, Mac Hollins is the guy. He's doing fine. He's trusting in his coaching staff, I believe.
Fair point.
So eventually it was like, all right, let's try someone else here. They move, or even maybe Howie was like, I know Mac isn't doing well. Maybe after the wide receivers coach comments about he lines up correctly, so he grades out well for us, they get rid of Mac Hollins. And then they're forced to move Ward up, and then Ward plays spectacular. I don't even want to say spectacular. He just played good football. He caught the ball, ran the correct routes. It wasn't like he was going for 150 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was going
playing
4
good,
catches,
hard-nosed
60
football.
yards, maybe a touchdown, maybe not. And I think ultimately that's what got them fired, because it was probably they probably reported to Doug, and then Doug went with them. And then once the change was made, it was on them. How can you go that far, though? It's stubbornness.
It's unbelievable. It boggles my mind when you have that many people on a coaching staff and that much time to see a player play. Both, preseason he lit it up, in camp. To me, it's just inexcusable, and I understand why Jeffrey Lurie did what he did. So this leads me to...
Glad.
Were you
freaking out after that press conference?
Absolutely.
Like,
you look like a moron, Doug. What are you doing?
What are you talking about? You saw that comeback at the end of the year. I'm like, your quarterback had to be Houdini for 4 straight games, and your practice squad players. Let's not forget Boston Scott.
He sounded very Brett Brownish. You know what I mean? It was
yes.
Oh my God, man! It was unbelievably frustrating. But that brings me to this then. So, to me, I think the ultimate problem these past 2 seasons comes down to Doug and Howie. It's not being able to, number one, get the right personnel on the team in the beginning of the year, and then number 2, whether it's your staff that you have that you've brought on, or your inability to control your staff, control the players, which we saw a little fallout. You have the Alshon scenario. You have some of the other players, Scandrick, they brought on. You have to be able to maintain that locker room, and that was one of his strengths, was the unity that he had. But I will say, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl and they had that unity, they also had some very strong leaders, veteran leaders. You have Malcolm, who was still there. You had Chris Long. Yeah, he bitch slapped Rihanna in the middle of the locker room. No, you had Chris Long. You had Jason Peters, who Peters is still there, but you just had more veteran leadership in this, and they set the tone, I think, for for all sides of the ball, and then you have obviously Kelsey. I think when you started getting a little more younger flavor, it got a little away from him.
I also think we forget about Torrey Smith and the speed he brought. And Nelson Aguilar was in a different position, running as the third guy route. So that speed on the field changed everything for Wentz and Foles. You know what I mean? And then Alshon's 2 years younger. That's a factor as well.
So let's talk about that. Let's first start with why I think Howie had a lot to do with the Eagles not being where they're supposed to be. So after the Super Bowl, the Eagles' needs were still the same as this past season. The cornerbacks, obviously Tom Brady threw for a record in the Super Bowl, and I get it, it's Tom Brady, but over 500 yards. The D-backs were getting torched. You said it best with Green Goblin. He played decent last year, but he leads you to believe that he's playing better than he is. Like you said, he waves his finger after everything, whether it was an incomplete pass that was just way overthrown or not.
Right.
The secondary was dreadful once again. The DNs really don't generate much pressure and still don't. That was a glaring need. They didn't get Clowney. They could have got Clowney for a third-round pick. Are you kidding me? They didn't get Clowney. Hindsight 2020, I think not giving up the 2 first-rounders for
Jalen Ramsey.
I think that's probably a good move at the end of the day, not getting rid of the 2 firsts for him. I think the guy in New England's actually the best cornerback in the league. Gilmore.
Yep.
They could have addressed – the point is they could have addressed the needs that we've had, that the fans have seen in the offseason. Instead, they decide to sign an aging, injury-prone Deshaun Jackson when they already have 2 receivers that they're thinking of bringing back over $10 million. Instead of bringing back a Nelson Aguilar, they could have did what we talked about before we got on air. Right there for the taking was a speed demon, a freak, physical nature freak, DK Metcalf, who runs like a 4.4 40. I get it. He was labeled as only being able to run a fly route. Well, guess what? Guess what route the Eagles needed mainly for someone to be able to run? Just get down the field and take the top off.
And which in Seattle, they designed plays that were specifically geared on him running 2 or 3 routes. And that was known all year, and he still was successful. So
he ate us alive.
Maybe it's...
So what's the problem?
Yeah,
and here's the thing.
Can we not design that type of deal, or do they have to run this set offense? They can't.
You can't adapt a little bit.
They can run that damn wide receiver screen 100,000 times. That works once every 7 games.
So imagine the Eagles don't pay Deshaun Jackson that big contract. Let's say that they sign someone like a DK Metcalf. Let's say that they don't bring back Nelson Aguilar, and maybe they brought back. Not every move is going to hit, but let's say they brought back someone like Golden Tate, who is more of like a hard-nosed receiver.
Another one. Roughly
about the same price as Aguilar, right? Maybe a little more, I don't know, but he's definitely would have been worth a little more than Aguilar. So let's say that was your receiving core going into the season. You could have had a nice rookie in DK Metcalf. You could have had someone who's a hard-nosed player, Golden Tate, and an Alshon Jeffrey who's proven to be a cancer. Problem number 2, why does Howie give 3 years guaranteed? I can understand maybe 2 years with the 3rd-year option. Why give 3 years guaranteed to Alshon Jeffrey? I don't get that for the life of me.
Especially knowing what you knew before. There were rumors about him having problems with Wentz.
Exactly.
And Wentz had all the receivers out to try to build some camaraderie, bought Alshon a plane ticket. Alshon just didn't go. And that's his fine. If he doesn't want to do that, that's cool. But you being Howie have to be aware of that and think, you know what, hey. But then again, I can see that Howie going to Wentz and Wentz being like, well, no problem, we're all good. Cause he's
but you have to be able, as a GM, as a smart GM, you could see the writing on the wall. You know how to read people. You know, that's one of your main jobs is reading people, getting a flavor for their personality, talking to people, hearing the whispers in the locker room. Do you think this guy's really good? So even if Wentz, and he should know Wentz's personality. So if Wentz is just
not going to throw anyone
he's not going to throw anybody under the bus. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. You got to go to someone like Peters. Hey, give it to me straight. Tell me to talk bad, but is this guy all for the team or not? You know what I mean?
Telling you, there was a press conference, and Lane Johnson was getting interviewed after the game, and Alshon came into his interview like trying to joke around, and Lane didn't even smirk, dude. He ignored that he was even.
Love that,
and you could tell. And that was right when the stuff was coming out, and I'm like, "Oh man, there's legs to this because there's a reason why that's going down." And then Alshon kind of just like faded away. There was no. There was no
if he's
they
willing
won too. It was a win after a win.
If he's willing to give off that impression in front of the press, it's worse in the actual locker room.
Yeah.
If he's like, I ain't fucking with you in front of the press, yeah, it's even worse behind closed doors. We know how that goes. So that's what I mean. Like, Howie's got to know. So there's my problems with Howie. As fans, we've had the same perspective. You hear it on Sports Talk Radio. We need the secondary. We need DN help. We don't need, $10 million wide receivers when we've already got a lot of money invested in that position. I did like the Jordan Howard signing, but I think he could have been used more definitely in parts of the season, and that goes on to Doug. So we'll roll that right into Doug. Some of his play calling is definitely questionable. He's the offensive coordinator. And now we have a scenario, and I don't know if this was a power struggle at all between him and Howie, but the reason the Eagles could not get an offensive coordinator is because he doesn't want to give up play calling responsibility. And I question his play calling responsibility. Sometimes he does good, and then other times when the Eagles were so beat up at wide receiver, and you think, all right, they're just going to pound the ball all game. They got two solid backs. They got one who's a rookie who's showing promise, and they got one who's just a hammer in Jordan Howard. And let the O-linemen were practically begging. You hear guys after the post-game press conferences like Trey Thomas and Barrett Brooks, former Eagles linemen, and they're in tune with what the current linemen are saying, and these guys want to pound the ball, and it's falling on deaf ears. You'll see these games where they got friggin' Matt Collins out there, and they got Arcega-Whiteside, and he doesn't know how to run a route, and they don't run the ball. And then the next game they'll run the ball and they'll win. And it was driving me bonkers with Doug this year at points. But see what tends to happen.
It happened the Super Bowl year, and they had to talk with him, and he adjusted.
And he adjusted.
After the Chiefs game.
And I think that was, having Frank Reich there, who's proven to be an unbelievable coach. If you look at what he did down in Indianapolis when Andrew Luck leaves.
Like the week before the season.
And they beat the Eagles, and to have that team in the playoffs. They made the playoffs, right?
No.
Oh, they just missed it. That's right. They just missed the playoffs. Either way, though, that team shouldn't have been anywhere close, and he had them right there in contention. There's my problems with Doug. I think he definitely can be stubborn. Players like him. He's a great locker room guy, but I definitely question his play calling skills, and I question some of the people he has on his staff now.
I'm going to give him the play calling. I don't think is as bad as it feels. I think that game plan from that offensive coordinator and what they were bringing was so horrific. Because you could just see, even Wentz was clearly having his struggles, and you think you would do things to make it easier on him, like roll him out. But they would roll him out to the opposite way.
The wrong way.
And it's like, come on, this is schemed up. And so they're coming in with the game plan, probably talking it, and Wentz has input in the game plan. I think a lot of those plays is execution and just a terrible game plan in general. Like not attacking the team's weaknesses.
Right, and not playing to your own strengths
as well.
We talked about this before the last podcast, before the season started, that Wentz, one of his greatest strengths is his ability to make plays out of the pocket. Because I compared it to Donovan. I thought that was one of Donovan's, what made him so good was his plays out of the pocket. He seemed a lot more comfortable as a thrower. And Wentz definitely seems more comfortable outside the pocket as well. But like you said, they run it to the opposite side. So he gets sometimes he would get blindsided by a D lineman. He can't see him as well. It just really didn't make any sense. They got to learn how to utilize their players. And
running timing routes with receivers that don't know how to do the timing yet. Wentz is a down the field guy. That's why you need speed, so he can just in the MVP year. Those weren't pinpoint throws.
No.
Though he did make a lot this year. I'm not saying he can't. They were throws you just make on the run because they're wide open. There were games where he would be on the run scrambling, and the receivers wouldn't even be running back.
Right.
So knowing what you know as a coordinator or a coach, you
create that for him. What made Wentz an MVP candidate was his playmaking capability. Like a Patrick Mahomes, they have this unbelievable ability, whether it's inside the pocket or to scramble and make those plays. Now, Wentz, obviously, I feel the injury might have taken a step away from him, his athleticism.
Speed-wise, I'd say.
Yeah, because I remember just looking back at a couple of highlights from that MVP, even a like season that he had in 2017. It definitely looks like it might have took that burst, that quickness, that step of quickness away. Either way, that's one of his strengths. The Eagles definitely didn't play to it, and
they didn't have the speed to even do it.
No. Well, like you said, too, in the last podcast, you said that they were still running the read option, which was more suited for Foles, for Wentz.
Yeah. What's the point of that? That's not a strength of his. It's not. And they keep running it, and you see it. Like, his thing isn't like, let me hit the accurate slant and read. It's just, why do that? Do what he does best. Go back to what he did in college. You know what I mean? Go back to what he did. They did it for Foles. Why not do it for him?
Why not do it for him? So we're pre-draft here. I do not have the best outlook on the upcoming season for the Eagles. Talk me off the ledge. What would you say still gives you – and we're pre-draft too, so maybe – I mean, that's the other thing. They don't really hit on their draft picks.
That's
so
where
I'm not thrilled there.
I'll give you the plan, Eric.
Give me the plan, because give me
but
something.
I don't know if they're going to execute it.
Give me something to be excited for the upcoming season. Why I think the Eagles can have success. Because they're another year older with aging linemen, both on offensive, defense, and we still don't have the secondary figured out. Because now we have another free agent who is a heart and soul leader on the team that we may not be able to play. So give me some reason why the Eagles, what are they going to do that's going to make this a good season?
I'll start on the offensive side of the ball, all right?
Okay.
From what you saw with Wentz, I know you were a skeptic, but you were a fan. I'm not saying you were a hater, which some people try to paint you. I know that ain't you. But you saw he has the clutch factor, the clutch gene. He has that ability in him. So for me, and we saw putting Boston Scott, Greg Ward on the field, speed.
Boston Scott I liked. There you go.
Put some speed on that offense, it will move. So going into the draft and free agency, the number one key offensively is speed, and I think one
wide
way
receiver?
or the other, wherever. Wide receiver, yes, preferably. At least one.
All right, not to interrupt you, but who do you like at wide receiver? Because there's a bunch of studs.
Yeah. Henry Ruggs.
Who do you like that you think will be there? Higgins, maybe?
Ruggs may be there. T. Higgins isn't as fast, but he's good. I like Justin Jefferson, who had he had the LSU guy. What am I?
I know. Yeah, I do the same
People
thing,
will be killing us right now for not knowing that or not remembering it. Anyway,
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow had like the number one most accurate throws in college football. So Jefferson had a lot of accurate balls, but he has some speed. I really like, and I'm falling in love with this guy, KJ Hamlin out of Penn State. He has a lot of speed, and they can definitely get him even as a first-round pick. If he's going to be an early second, I'm willing to take him at 21, to ensure that we have speed receivers.
Yeah.
So there are a couple guys that I like, that are able to get. You could even trade back and grab some guys,
Okay. So continuing then with the offense, let's say the Eagles get one of the guys that you like. What else is going to make this team better? Do we grab anyone in free agency or? So now, because remember, we have no offensive coordinator now too.
We have a run game coordinator, and a pass game coordinator, Eric. So as far as that goes, speed's going to change everything, in my opinion. So if you add a speed receiver in the draft, you're going to get Deshaun Jackson back. He's not going to be out for the season next year. All right, he's going to play 10 to 12 games. I just don't think
that might be high for him.
He's going to be out for the year. So you have him on the other side. They're probably going to move on from Alshon Jeffrey.
How, though? So tell me how that works, because I would love for that to happen.
So the cap will be raised, they're saying, about 10 to 12 million.
Okay.
If they keep Alshon Jeffrey, he's about 26 million on the books. If they cut him,
now why is it 26 million on the books? Because he's only making what, like 15?
No, that's what he's making, 26.
He's making
guaranteed.
26.
Well, that's how he rolled it into this year and next year. But against the cap, if he stays, it's like 26.
Oh, that's right. Because this year's not his third year. Next year would be, right?
Right. So if you cut him,
Jesus Christ,
cut him or trade him, trade's gonna be tough. So you cut him, let's say. You still have 18 million against the cap this year. But if the cap's going up 12, you're only losing 6 and you got to bite the bullet. And then next year you would lose another 9, and then it's gone. You know what I mean? But the key there is hitting on a wide receiver, and then you may have the flexibility to maybe sign a Robbie Anderson or someone at like at 10 million. You're losing to Nelson Aguilar, so that's another 9 million off the books.
Okay.
So there's flexibility there to sign a receiver if you move on from Alshon. but you have to draft one as well.
Gotcha.
So that gives
all right, so in that scenario, I'd be comfortable with the wide receivers because Nelson fucking blows. Jeffrey is a cancer and is talking shit about the quarterback who, for all intents and purposes, even if he didn't like the style of play, I mean, Wentz is still a decent guy. He'll still have your back, and he's still a good player. Plus, you dropped the ball in the playoffs that probably could have got us back, you son of a bitch, so just shut your mouth. All right, so I like what you did with receiver. I like our backs. Do you think Jordan Howard comes back?
Depends how much. If it's going to be for like $2 million, $3 million, yeah. I think Howie was very smart in not – everyone's like, we better re-up him right now, He clearly has an injury history with that shoulder. Mm-hmm. That's why we got him for a 7th-round pick or whatever it was, 6th-round pick. The Bears were aware of that. So, yes, I maybe would or maybe not. Maybe I draft a big bowler-type running back in the draft.
In the later rounds. Yeah.
Because if you want to keep Boston Scott, I want to run
I want Boston Scott and I want Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I want that on offense.
So if we can keep, let's say best case scenario, we can keep Jordan Howard for cheap. That's a great three-headed monster, and I like it because you mentioned Howard can be injury-prone, so we keep him off the field. He doesn't need a full workload. Miles Sanders can kind of carry the full, and we could sprinkle in Boston Scott like a Darren Sproles. All right, so let's talk about that real quick. I'm hearing rumors that they're going to keep Sproles. Is that true?
That can't be true. But
okay.
I'm sure he could come out if he wanted to. But he had a whole thing. He came out of the tunnel the last time at the link. He wrote a whole letter to the fans.
That could just be some confusion I had on Sports Talk Radio the other day. I heard because obviously a lot of the talk was about Jason Peters and him more than likely coming back.
We did hear this one.
Which really, really pissed me off because Andre Dillard should be in a position to play. So it's either one of two things. It's either he's not ready to play, which pisses me off because, like you said, that means they missed on another first-rounder and the guy's soft. Or number two, they're bringing him back for some type of leadership-type role, which I love JP for that, but, I mean, it would be time to move on. We can't pay him. So I'm good with the backs. The line does worry me because of what we just talked about with JP. Kelsey is playing great, but he's another year older. Lane Johnson, he's a beast, in my opinion. He's still going to be a beast, but he got some injuries and didn't have quite the season, even though he's good. Brooks got hurt again. Brooks is always a beast. He might be one of the best right guards in the league.
Yeah. How about this? What if they brought Peters back and moved him to guard, and then had him
left guard
has a insurance policy for Dillard, and then you still have Sayamalo and Pryor as your versatile guys that can play.
I would like that. Do you think Peters would do that? I think he has too much pride. Do you think
No, he's on record. He's already said that he would do that. He was willing to do that last year. Why they didn't do that, I don't know.
Yeah.
He was willing to move in and let Dillard play tackle and him move to guard. He was willing to do that.
Okay. So, that's scary because that might be a Dillard issue. There's the offense. Now, what about the defense brings you any positive light? Because linebacker, and I'll just start off with this. Linebacker, a guy who I really liked, Bradham. Oh, my God, did he look slow. And I'll tell you when he looked slow to me. It was on a play that he made that was actually good when he made that interception for a touchdown. And how long it took him to score, I'm like, what the fuck, dude? This guy is running in cement shoes. I'm like, what happened to him? He used to be like a stud linebacker, and now he's...
I didn't pick up on that. I was too happy that he covered the spread on that.
Go watch that when you get home. Just watch a quick YouTube clip of, if you can find it, of his interception. He is so fucking slow.
I'll tell you I noticed it the rest of the season. I'll tell you that because he's been this ghost for what's he have? 1 interception in 2 years, 1 forced fumble. I don't see him really all over the ball. I think that was a good move to move on from that contract.
I do too. No, absolutely. I think we had to move on from him. Jenkins, I've always been a Jenkins fan. The guy's a great leader for this team. He was the glue that kind of held the defensive together, even though a lot of people give that to Fletcher Cox. But to me, Fletcher Cox, he takes plays off. I don't know if I want to say that completely, but...
Well, he was injured at the beginning of the year, so you got to remember that.
He's injured, but then he's also like Ghost, man. You just don't hear his name. I remember again, that was beginning of the year, so I'll give you credit for that, but I felt like you just didn't hear the guy's name.
And there are years, even years past, and they went on film and showed it, when we haven't had other linemen, that he's getting triple, and even, sometimes they add a 4th guy getting him. So sometimes it isn't him. But you are correct. In the beginning of the year, he definitely wasn't himself. It wasn't until that, I don't know if you remember, the Minnesota game, we got smoked, but he blew through the line a couple plays and just killed people. You're
and
like,
just trains.
Oh, he's
well, he
back.
has those games. He has those games, and then everyone's like, yeah, he's back. So maybe I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because his supporting partner, D-tackle, every single fucking person we had got hurt.
Yep.
We got Malik Jackson. We got
That was key, man.
We got what's his name back for a deal.
Jernigan
back. He got hurt again. Ridgeway was playing well, and then he got hurt. Everybody we tried, so that I will give you that. That's key. But Brandon Graham's another year older. How can we improve this defense?
So Malik Jackson coming back is going to be huge.
Does he stay healthy?
I mean, I don't think we expected him to get hurt, so right. I don't know.
So we'll hope. We'll be hopeful there.
He's not injury prone, right?
He was hurt in Jacksonville the year. Yeah, he was prior to us getting him. Yeah.
Okay, that's a problem.
So we got Jackson coming back. Graham's fairly steady. I like him against the run, but you weren't too thrilled about Barnett. I'm not too thrilled about Barnett. We got to fill the linebacker void.
They're not going to fill the linebacker void. I think they're going to roll with Nate Jerry. They have Duke Riley. He'll probably play more special teams. I don't think they value the linebacker. They may draft one late in the draft, but not that I'm saying this is correct, but historically they just don't value the position.
Well, then tell me what we do at secondary to help this team. Do we get corners?
That is where I think free agency is going to be geared towards. They are going to go after Byron
Jones.
Do
we overspend on Byron Jones and pay him the top cornerback in the league money? Because that's supposedly what he's demanding.
I don't know.
I don't know if he's worth that.
There's Chris Harris is out there. I don't know. I think they definitely we're supposed to be going after him first. I think they definitely go after – and then Ramsey's out there too. I know he had a rough end with the Rams, but he didn't re-sign with them. He's a free agent.
Problem is I don't think we get them at what I think would be the right money that we would need to build the overall team.
Yeah, but where else are we putting it? You know what I mean? So like, it's got to go somewhere. And I really like Chris Harris. To your point of saving the money, you know what I mean? He's a good veteran corner that you can bring in. He's not going to.
What's he? 32?
Yeah, 31, I think. Not that that's a big difference.
Yeah.
So they're going to go free agent route at the corner position. Malcolm Jenkins may be back, may not be back. We really have to see. I really think though they have to overhaul defensively, especially with a youth movement. You know
I agree.
They have to draft corners. They have to. There's safeties available in this draft.
Who do you like at safety?
Kyle Duggar is a safety.
Because that's where we might be able to save.
Actually, he plays corner, but Grant Delpit of LSU, that would have to be a first-round pick. There's a guy out of Clemson. Actually, you'd have to trade up for him. He's a linebacker / safety. You'd have to get in like the top 10 for him. That probably won't happen. But they have another safety who did well in the combine. He got kind of tore up in the national championship game. Taylor Muse, I think his name is. He's a guy that we can get, later rounds. There are, players available.
Because we might lose McLeod and Malcolm
Jenkins. I think with Jenkins, it'll get worked out. The only thing is we're just going to overpay in guaranteed money right now.
Right now.
We can't get locked into a long-term deal with him. He's too
So
old.
in hindsight, do you think we should have paid him, what was it, last year? And maybe we would be able to get him at a better deal?
Probably. I thought maybe just calm him down right then and now.
Right, that's what I was thinking,
make him
too.
happy. Give him the guaranteed money last year. We had room. Give him some this year. Unless they got something cooked up in the works. He could be traded. Maybe they trade him draft one. McLeod, I think, is very underappreciated.
I do too. They're the backbone of the defense. They're the ones that helped keep it together when things were really about to fall apart and shit was going to hit the fan. Though luckily we had those two back there.
You never see McLeod getting burnt. You never hear him getting picks, but he's never getting burnt.
He's never really getting burnt. No,
Sidney
he doesn't
Jones
really
is another.
Well,
one.
that one time I think he let McLaren behind him. Now, I think it was actually his fault, not one of the DBs. But irregardless, it's very few and far between.
Right.
We absolutely need them. Fingers crossed that one of these years, hopefully this year, we can hit in the draft. And if we could get our first round to hit, like let's say that's a wide receiver, let's say round 2 we take a defensive player that really hits, I think that's ultimately what we need. Have a shot at the season next year.
I mean, that's how teams win. You can't just
look at the Cowboys. Look at who the Cowboys just built their team with Zeke and Zach Martin and the DN that they took and Van Der Esch. They were just fucking hitting left and right. Seattle Seahawks are a perfect example of that team. When they
Ravens.
When they built the Ravens every year. Legion. Well,
Kyle Duggar is a safety, by the way. I got
Okay.
myself mixed up in my head. He's like a D2 guy, but sorry, not to go off topic.
He's D2?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
He was out half the year with an injury, and he still won Defensive Player of the Year. That's how good he was.
God damn.
And then I watched him in the Senior Bowl. They got invited to the Senior Bowl with all the D1 guys, and he held his own. He got beat on one play on a miscommunication. The Notre Dame Claypool, I think it was, on an out. But the whole game he was covered.
He was
right there. So I really like him.
Maybe we can get him in a later round. Yeah. All right, so that's what I'm hopeful for. I think we got a hit in the draft. I don't know what we'll be able to do in free agency to make us any better, but I guess we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Wentz got another year under his belt, so maybe he can carry the team. I just feel bad for him in a way because I feel like the guy's got the weight of the world on his shoulders since he's came back, and I don't think it's getting really any easier. Just with the personnel around him, not having that extra offensive coordinator, that extra mind in the room.
He's got Dan Orlovsky. Who will put the stuff out that's true.
Oh, yeah, he does have his back, man.
Yeah,
I wonder what that connection is.
Probably just being a quarterback in the NFL and getting trashed, and you're not the. He probably saw that it was the receivers. Thank God he did, because even me, you know me, I'm a big Wentz guy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just. I'm a huge Wentz guy, but I'll crush him when he's wrong too. And I was after that Seahawks game, like, be critical. I can't honestly commentate and talk about this stuff and not be critical there.
Sure, you got to call it like you see it.
And then Orlovsky comes out and proves what I said was wrong, and I'm like, oh my God, thank you,
I'm
Dan.
back. I'm back. All right, so we'll just keep a positive mindset. We'll roll it into fuck it. Flyers are doing well. It's about to be baseball season. You know, the Phillies, they got some people. What's your outlook for the Phillies? I love the signing of Joe Girardi. He was the head coach that I wanted out of all the free agents. So I'm happy we got rid of Gabe. I don't know what it is with our coaches in Philly, with Brett Brown and Gabe. They just drive me nuts, pulling my hair out of my head. So, Gabe, nice guy. Glad to know you, but glad to see you go at the same time. One of the only coaches that I can distinctly remember significantly losing games, in my opinion, with some of the moves he made.
10 games.
Easy. So I love the Joe Girardi hire. I got to admit, I'm disappointed we didn't really get the pitching that I wanted. I think we really needed that support. I thought we were going to make a stronger play for someone like Chris Bryant or a third baseman, all the free agents that were out there. Do you think – so that's the first question. Do you think they're done with adding any players?
I think they are done unless they get a deal. But to your pitching question or point, I think that pitching coach and the way that Gabe was doing things was so bad that you're going to see a difference. You're going to see – you hear a lot of talk of Arrieta and even Eflin – talking about I'm now able to throw a fastball, or I'm able to throw a sinker in certain positions, where this pitching coach is geared towards their strengths and what they're comfortable with and tweaking that, as opposed to saying, hey, the analytical data says we need to throw a high fastball here. They're getting back to the ground balls and low pitching, and I think that may be why we didn't see a huge acquisition. They're still got their – because Eflin had a – did you see at the end of the year, Eflin finally just said, I'm done with you guys personally, and just did his own thing, and he started to have success again.
Yeah.
So there's optimism there, and then as far as the moves go, if you got to give up your whole farm system for Chris Bryant, I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah. We don't have much to give anyway. So who was the pitcher? Was it Pivetta in the beginning of last year that they fed us? Was it Pivetta they fed us? But I think that was he the one they were really high on. They gave us a load of shit that he's looking really good because it was like the Eagles, man. It's the same thing with the sports teams, the same problems.
All the stuff he had.
All the same problems year after year. We don't have pitching, we don't have this, we don't have that, and it just doesn't correct it. And they feed us bullshit, but this guy's really looking good, and he didn't do shit. So hopefully, to your point, the new pitching coach can help out there. But who's the starting four going into? Besides our ace.
Wheeler. We got Wheeler, too.
That's right. We got Wheeler from the Mets.
Yep.
Okay.
So you got.
I still don't really have faith in Arrieta. That guy's proven to be a douchebag to me.
He's like what, our four? So you got or three. So you got no. Well, he might be the four.
He's the four.
Eflin might become the three.
Yeah.
Then you got Wheeler, Aaron Nola, obviously, and then Velasquez and Pivetta are going to fight out for the fifth. So did we name 4 there? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. Velasquez, I don't think is a terrible 5th. He has games where he doesn't pitch well. It's just being able to recognize when he's struggling early and pull the plug quick enough as the manager to move on to the bullpen, where I think Gabe was kind of just, I don't know what the hell he's doing. Because there were games he would pull him when Velasquez was looking great, and then there were times he's clearly struggling, and he's like, I'm not quitting on my guys. It's like,
Yeah, like save the hero bullshit, man. Just fucking
Just
be a
make the
manager,
move.
right? Not everything is like some hero '80s movie or something. You weirdo.
And that's what I think is going to be a huge difference, because he was fake positive, where I think Joe Girardi is real positive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, he's a positive person, but he's also a real.
And he's
gonna
passionate,
be real.
and he tells it like it is, man.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, like just be a normal person. Don't be Richard Simmons, like positive athletic vibe. We don't need all that. So the infield will be Segura at third,
which is looking good.
I think I like Segura a lot more than most of the people in Philly here.
Did you hear about him?
Mm-mm.
So he lost like 20 pounds.
Oh yeah, he stopped drinking whiskey.
Quit drinking.
That sucks for him.
And
but.
now his attitude apparently is all better.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it. Now imagine going through last year. You kind of caused the injury to McCutchen.
Which he admitted that, and he apologized to that recently. Did you hear that?
Yeah. And you're drinking every night whiskey.
Yeah.
And then you're coming in to Gabe like, hey, Gene.
Yeah.
We're going to win the day. Blah, 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 blah. And he probably was like, oh, my God.
He's like, I need a fucking whiskey.
I need a drink.
Yeah, he's like, I need a drink. This guy's too much, man.
So
He's got his shirt off and a Speedo on in the middle of the locker room.
like of course he was drinking.
Yeah.
So he's got his head on straight. He's willing to play third, like you were saying. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I like that move there. I like hopefully Didi can have a bounce back year in terms of hitting. Second, we have
Kingery. Which Girardi, what we all been yelling, Kingery, can he just play one position? Girardi came in, said, of course he's just going to play one position because that makes perfect sense because that's what it should be.
That's the way it's supposed to be. We'll have Hoskins. I think Hoskins will have – this is a make-it-break-it year for him to see if he can – I think a lot of last year was mental. And like you said, that could have been Gabe and the analytics bullshit fucking with his head.
It definitely was. They said he ate it up more than any player because he doesn't have any manager to go off of. He doesn't.
Right.
He's going off of this. So Harper wouldn't even look at the darn sheets, and he's looking at them every launch angle and all that stuff. So now I think he talks to Girardi. Oh, I don't have to worry about all that stuff. Nah, just choke up on the bat. Got you here.
We have the best catcher in the game. We got Bryce out in right field. Yep. We'll have Kutch back in center field at some point. But what's his name played?
He'll probably play
in like April-ish.
Left field, Kutch.
Oh, Kutch, that's right.
But Hazley, you got out there.
Hazley, he definitely had his moments last year. So
Young.
He could. And then we have Bruce as a backup still, right?
Yep, and he'll probably start in left.
God murdered the ball when he was in there.
He was having success when he was starting.
Unbelievable.
You got Roman Quinn, who's injury prone, but when he's in, he gives you some speed.
He plays well. What do you think is going to happen with Odubel?
I think there's no shot.
Yeah, is he in minor leagues right now?
Yeah, they put him down and no one grabbed him. His contract's, he's got a significant contract.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can justify bringing him up.
No, I was just curious what they were going to. Yeah, so he's just going to be in baseball purgatory for a little bit. Huh. So the Eagles definitely could do some things. The problem is they're in a stacked league. You got the defending World Series champs, and you got the Braves who have some unbelievable talent. Young talent. That's the only thing.
Braves worry me.
Braves definitely worry me. The Nationals don't worry you? That pitching?
I know they won and all. And don't get me wrong. But they kind of was lightning in a bottle. They were losing big time, and they went on a run. They were like,
yeah.
They were actually did.
Well,
the
even the playing game.
loss.
The playing game they were losing.
Right.
Because they had that playing game for the playoffs.
So they have heart, and I'm not saying by any means. I mean, they were always in the playoffs with Harper, but I'm not as worried about them.
Yeah,
as
you get hot. I mean. That's the thing, too. You play 162 games in a season, which is way too long. And like you said, if you get hot at the right time at the end of the year, like you used to see the Tampa Devil Rays do that, go on the run, that's the problem with baseball. The wrong team can win a lot of years.
Yeah.
The team that doesn't necessarily deserve to win. Not saying that they didn't because they had a good squad.
Hockey, too.
But Rendon is gone. And that he's one of the best players in baseball.
That's a great point. I should have said it as I was saying it. Rendon's gone. They chose Strasburg, right? Strasburg's back. They signed him to whatever deal. Mm-hmm. And Rendon he's a really good player.
He's one of the
that was how they were good at drafting.
Yeah.
I guess they got another one ready.
Rendon's top 3 in the league, probably. Well,
where did he sign?
He's out west. Is it the Angels? Padres?
Oh, wow, I think it is the Angels with Trout.
That's crazy.
Yes, with Trout.
Two potential of the best players on the same team.
I remember getting the update. It is the Angels. I remember getting the update on my phone. Being like, oh, my God. Trout finally has someone.
Yeah, I'm definitely more positive on the Phillies than I am the Angels.
Yep.
Look out for them this year. Matter of fact, since we talked prop bets, I think they have a good prop bet. They're still I want to say 15-1.
Oh, okay.
Might not be a bad. They might even be higher. Might not be a bad team for baseball season so long.
You mean AL squad?
Yeah, give you something to root for. Moving on to the Sixers, what we've seen with them. I don't
Do they
know
get
where
to hear the sound effect in your voice that you just made?
I hope so.
That's very telling.
Because first, let's just start with the process. Right off the bat, do you think the process was thumbs up, thumbs down, successful, unsuccessful? If I'm looking at it right now, and this season plays out the way I think it is going to play out, the process is going to be a complete and utter failure, in my opinion. And I'll tell you why.
Good, yeah, it did.
And one of the main reasons might not even be because of the players from the process per se. I think Brett Brown's a big problem. I don't think he knows how to utilize his talent to the best of their abilities. And someone made the point again today because Shake Milton, who is the Sixers point guard for people who aren't aware, backup point guard, he's been filling in for Ben Simmons.
Bench player.
And he's came in and he's had a great run of games. And then I hear on the radio people saying, oh, well, he should be starting. Let's move Ben. And it's just like, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's not get crazy and just start I'm reminded of Jeremy Lin when he went on that run and he was the best thing since sliced bread for the Knicks at that time. Linsanity. And then look at him now. He's not starting. So the point is, Shake Milton might not be a starter. But the flip side of this,
I don't even think Lin's in the league.
He may not even. Yeah. I think he might be. Yeah, he might be D-League or playing overseas. The point being, this is how desperate we are, and this is what it's come to, is that the Sixers are willing to do this because we've seen the disappointment so far in this regular season. The past 2 seasons, we've seen the disappointment in the playoffs. And mainly what we've seen from the Sixers is the weakness of Ben Simmons come playoff time, not to be able to run the point in a half-court offense, drive the ball, he dishes it off, or he doesn't get to the foul line and doesn't shoot. This becomes a problem in the playoffs. As great as he is in the regular season, unfortunately, does not mean shit. What means something is when you get to the playoffs and doing something in the playoffs. So people are looking towards a Shake Milton and saying, let's put Ben at the 4, which I can honestly understand that point just because they want to have a natural point guard, someone who can shoot. Will it work? Probably not. That's not going to work in the playoffs either. But people are just looking for some sense of hope when it gets there because what we've seen is dreadful. We've seen Ben, once again, not really be in shape in the beginning of the year, labor up and down the court.
Joel Embiid, not Ben.
Or I'm sorry, Joel Embiid, labor up and down the court. Ben's always in shape. Ben, in the beginning of the season, everybody's hyped. They see the videos of him knocking down threes in pickup games and before the game starts. Brett Brown publicly saying he told Ben he wants him to take 1 shot a game and him not doing it. Jimmy Butler coming out publicly and basically saying that Ben, in so many words, was the problem. One of the reasons why he left.
I just want to correct you there because he just came out actually this weekend and said,
backtracked on that.
He didn't even because he never said Ben's name. That was just a rumor.
He did.
He specifically said Ben and Joe's name, that he has absolutely no problem with either of those guys. They were not.
Do you believe that?
I do, actually.
You do?
Because I don't see how Ben's the problem.
Why do you think
he's the only guy that hustles for 48 minutes, like every single game?
Why do you think Jimmy left? Do you think it was?
I think it's your number one culprit, Mr. Brett Brown.
You think it's Brown? Which it could be because he blew up at Brown in practice, supposedly.
I think it was mutual. But they couldn't just not offer him anything. I think he wanted the 5-year deal, and he expects to, hey, if they...
And they offered it to him. The Sixers
offered him 4 first. So once they offered him 4, he's like, I want to get 5. He realized they're playing games with me, and then I think he was like, if I can orchestrate a deal elsewhere, I'm out. I'm not playing games with this coach any more than I already have. That's my personal opinion. I have, no info on that.
Right.
Because
okay. Well, I mean,
because he had hard workers. There may have been issues with other players on the team, but they were all hanging out in Miami in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see all four of them together.
Hanging out.
To the Butler point, yeah, he did make it clear that Ben was not the problem. You're right, though. The initial comments led you to believe that.
Right. So if you had a magic wand, how do you see this season playing out for the Sixers? And then after your prediction on how you see it playing out, tell me if you think the process was a success or a failure.
Because I want to answer that one.
Yeah.
All right. So the rest of the season obviously depends on the injuries.
Well, let's assume that Ben and Joel come back healthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they
stay healthy.
I'm one of the people that actually do believe in Shake Milton. I don't think he's a 39-point-a-night guy, but I do think he's a
interesting
15 points, knock down a couple threes guy. What I would like to see happen is keep him and Ben at the 1 and 2. So they drafted Markelle Fultz to be a combo point guard that would play alongside Ben. He didn't pan out. All he could do was drive to the basket. If Shake can hit that outside shot, now you have that. Then you can keep Horford on the bench, move Tobias Harris to the 4, which is his real position.
You think he's a 4?
He is. That's where he played everywhere else. He came here, we moved him to a 3, sometimes 2. So he gets to play his natural position. You got him beat at the 4,
Think
obviously.
He could handle that down low?
Well, they're stretched now.
It's not
like the power 4 we know from back in the day.
The Tim Duncan post you up and
it's not
off
that,
the block.
Not that good. But he does have a post game, but not like the one you're talking. So they'll stretch him out. That leaves the lane open for Embiid. So I think that can work.
So the 1-2, you move him to the 4, Tobias to the 4. Who's playing the 3?
That's my question.
Maybe?
You could do Thibault.
You probably have to do a rotation. Because
you could swing it up. You could go with Robinson the 3rd.
Why is he...
You can move Harris around, too.
So not to get off track a little bit, but why is he not getting any love? Because he went on a really good stretch with Golden State. And to my point about Brown not being able to play to people's strength, why is he not getting him in, or is he just not as good? Or what are your thoughts on him?
You have to remember before he came here, he was before this Warriors season, he was like a 6-point per game guy. So he's playing on Brett Brown.
And he is playing on a depleted team where somebody needs to be the scorer.
Right.
Okay.
But he was playing 40%. So he has had opportunities. He said he doesn't know his role. He was cutting to the basket those first couple games, which I don't see often from our wings. We tend to stay out in space. But he has got open looks, and he just hasn't knocked them down. So I think he'll continue to see time. I think he has to just keep cutting to the basket. I think he had 6 points on Sunday. He's a role player. He's going to get us that 6 points, 6 points a game maybe, but a hot game where he gets 12.
Yeah.
I think he's in a little bit of a rut now. He was banking on that contract, and now he's probably not going to get that contract.
Not going to get it. So you may do something of a rotational 3. What about this? Do you maybe do a 3-guard offense with Jay Rich?
At times they'll do that.
Right.
He'll mix it all up,
And how do you think he handles not being a starter in that scenario? Like with a rotating 3 and you have Tobias and Joel in the backcourt.
I think he'll
or not in the front court. Excuse me.
He's just going to deal with whatever. He's going to play the minutes. You know what I mean? He's still going to play the same minutes. I think it's going to dictate the matchup. You can move him to the 3 sometimes. He could start some games. You got to move around. He's been inconsistent as well.
He has
defensively and offensively.
I got to say I've been a little disappointed with him. I've been definitely disappointed with Horford, although I don't think he's been utilized properly, but that's not really the case. He's definitely been a disappointment. You'd have Horford coming off the bench. So, so let's say you have that 5 that you've kind of mentioned there. How does the season pan out?
It depends on the rest of the bench hitting shots, as it always has. They neglected to surround this team with shooters, which is a problem. Going into the year,
which they still think they are, which cracks me up sometimes. Horford taking all those threes, I want to punch myself in the head when he just does that nonstop.
Yeah, he said shooters shoot the other day. Yeah, but you're not.
You're not a shooter.
You're not historically. You hit a big 3. You're clutch, and he's hit some clutch ones this year. Actually, the Lakers game, but so the bad has outweighed that.
Right. The ones you've missed during the game have made it to where that shot now becomes clutch. If you hit those ones in the other, maybe you're in a position where
you pop out and get it. Right. You're feeling it. You know what I mean? Anyway. I think it can be, you still can get to the Eastern Conference Finals just based on the other teams.
Right.
I mean,
they match up fairly well with some teams.
I'm
I
not
think
scared of anyone.
Miami kind of seems like a little bit of a problem.
And they're falling off now.
Because what happened, they're falling off.
Butler's like 1 for 25 in clutch shots.
Boston, they could be a problem too.
We're 3-1 against them this year, though.
I don't like what I've seen from us against Milwaukee lately. Giannis is just abusing us. I mean, I think we might probably have to put Ben on him.
Well, the first game, we stopped them, but we also hit 21 threes, which is an anomaly. That's not going to happen.
We don't do that.
But Embiid did keep him under control. You're not going to shut him down. He had 18 points and 14 boards. The second game, we just got smoked by them. The third game, I'm going to give – Ben went down. Embiid was holding his own. They held Giannis to 5 points in that second quarter. He was guarding him. Like, Reggie Miller makes it worse than it is. He don't know what the hell he's talking about sometimes. The third quarter,
Giannis did give it to Ben a couple times. Like I remember a couple plays.
Well, yeah, he's not.
Or not Ben. Embiid.
He's not going to shut him down. But then there were other times Embiid slid and stopped them, but they just act like they don't comment on that. Because at 5 points in the second quarter, that's pretty good. He got 2 early fouls beginning of that third quarter, got pulled out of the game. He came back in. We were down 17.
And one thing I think Embiid would have to do against Giannis in any type of is set the tone early and impose his will and give him somewhat of a hard foul to let him know you're not just going to be fucking coming through this lane and dunking all kinds of crazy dunks on me or through the lane all day. He has to do that. He has to make his presence felt as a big man for them to have success against them.
And historically, he's had success as well.
He has, overall.
Even last year in regular season. So we can't take 1.5 games, I would even say 1 game, and just blow that out of it.
Just base it off.
The expectations were so high to be the 1 seed that these losses are making everyone even crazier.
Right.
They're wrong. It's bad. Don't get me wrong, but it's not. We're not the worst team in the league.
To me, what's bad is not necessarily the seed. Like you said, were expected to be. It's just what we've seen from the play. We've seen them give up at times, or they look totally lost out there. They get behind and chucking up threes. Same old story. Brett Brown, same old story. It's
the home versus away is the biggest.
That's so crazy
because we are one of the greatest this year, but one of the greatest ever to play in a season. Like we're the Warriors
historically
at home. We're the same as the Warriors were the year they
had that crazy record.
Yeah, but then on the road we're as worse as
it can be.
So, and I think a lot of that has to do with our bench. And this goes to Brand. You know what I mean? If they can knock down shots. You look at Embiid's road splits; they're exactly the same. He's 24-12 at home, 23-12 on the road.
Yeah.
Ben is similar. He gets his 15. Ben, you know what I mean, and his assistant is not close to a triple double, but you get what I'm saying. They are pretty consistent, believe it or not. Harris, the other max guy, and our bench and then Horford, obviously, but whatever. I can't. Horford was just a terrible.
And you know what? I'll be honest. I thought he was, because of how well he used to play Ben in those Boston games, I thought he was going to be a great pickup. I thought he was going to be great veteran leadership. Man, was I off.
Well, I don't think you're totally off. I think this goes to your point
about Brown.
Brown, but even more Brand and Brown.
Right.
You can't make that signing and then have him shooting 12 threes
like
he's Marcus Morris.
Right.
That's not his game.
You gotta utilize these people properly. Utilize them to their strengths.
But there had to have been a conversation, correct?
You would think.
So, you couldn't either Brand thinks he's a shooter too, or Brown and Brand didn't talk because you can't go sign this guy with that as the plan. The plan was to be able to match up against the Milwaukee Bucks because he can guard Giannis and spell.
Oh my God, did Giannis abuse him though?
I know.
Oh my God, he might have lost a step, but I get it. Yeah, that was the plan. And then you could put Ben on Middleton or whoever, and we would have been in nice matchups there, but just didn't pan out. Okay, all right. Well, let's finish your prediction. So, how do you think they finish out?
I'm too much of an optimist. You're telling me they are healthy because
they're all healthy. Assume they're all healthy.
If they're all healthy, they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't see any team unless we got Milwaukee in the second round.
Okay.
Which is a strong possibility. But I still think they can beat Milwaukee. So we're definitely in the second round, I guess you would say. I think they can beat Milwaukee, and that's going to be the test. You know what I mean? That's going to be you might want them to lose because if they get there, Brown's going to be back. If they don't,
God.
He's not. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to come down to realistically that second round matchup. I think they can beat the Bucks. Will they? I don't know.
I think they lose first or second round. So you would say, let's say they go to the Eastern Conference Finals in your prediction. Do you have them making it, or do you think what would be your prediction there? It could be 50-50?
I think they can because just like their home and away splits, they've beaten the top 10 teams in this league by double digits.
Okay.
They smoked the Clippers. They smoked the Lakers without Joel Embiid. They've beaten the Bucks. They've beaten the Heat by like 20-something. They've smoked Boston. Like, we're forgetting.
They've beaten some of the best teams.
And not even like squeaked by, like beaten them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then they've also been dreadful. But then you go and you see a game like Sunday without Ben and Joe, and they almost beat the Clippers.
Yeah.
Like, we only have a 4-game record lower than them. That's not that big of a difference.
So you're you're definitely more optimistic than I am for the season.
I don't want to say optimistic, not to cut you off.
Which is fine, but
I don't think it's as bad as we're making it, if that makes sense.
Well, I get what you're saying, too, because they definitely have the talent, and they've shown this year that they can beat these teams. The problem to me is just the same old problems. I don't think they can put it all together. I think they get lost at times. I think Brett Brown doesn't have them playing to their strengths to where they could really dominate games and close out games, and you see them let teams back in, and then they start chucking up threes. So that's what I think is going to happen. It's not that there's the lack of talent. They have the talent. I just don't think they'll put it all together, and we'll see that and we'll see them fall out in either the first or second round. So in your scenario, let's say they make it to the NBA Finals. Do they beat a Lakers team, a Clippers team, or anyone from the West?
I would say probably not. I don't think we have the bench pieces to do that.
I would agree because they're stacked.
Like the Clippers, like yesterday, we lost because of their bench. They had Lou Williams and
Shamet coming off.
And Shamet only had 3 points yesterday.
3 points,
Montrezl Harrell, he was matched up against Horford. He just dominated.
He wouldn't have done that against Joel, but
exactly.
But he was beasting, and he's a solid player though. To his credit, I've seen other games. He's definitely a solid player.
Yeah,
but It was
Williams,
a joke, man. It was a joke.
Him and Lou had 48 combined.
Yeah, Lou Williams could be another six-man a year for the third time. So, and then they got Beverly, who's solid defender. Yeah, they got all the right pieces. There's a perfect example.
Reggie Jackson they just signed.
Jackson's playing well. Yeah. All the right pieces and playing to their strengths, utilizing them to the best of it. But Paul George, how we forget about him? All right, so they make it there. He didn't want to come here, bastard. Another part of the problem, none of the big guys wanted to come here. Let's say, all right, they make it to the finals. They don't win. Your view of the process?
This year doesn't pan on the process for me. So I think it ended abruptly when Hinkie was taken out. You know what I'm saying? So when Adam Silver, not to go back that deep, got rid of Hinkie, it kind of ended it per se because the guy driving the ship's now gone. There's no way
they had their main pieces at that point.
But they also had Jahlil Okafor coming off a 17-9 rookie year. They had Nerlens Noel, who had high value. They went into the Ben Simmons draft. You can't tell me that Sam Hinkie goes into that year with Embiid, Okafor, and Noel on the roster. There's something else would have went down. So I give that part of it incomplete. But let's just go with what most people think. So you got Embiid and Simmons, okay?
Which to be honest, I can't really give you credit for Simmons. He was the number one pick. He was the obvious pick.
Well, that's why Hinkie gets credit because he
tanked. Okay, because he tanked.
He would have took that.
There's no way he tanked to get Simmons. All right, fair enough. So all right, you're right. I can't not give him credit when he tanked to do that on purpose.
So here's my question: how free agents don't want to come here?
Right, they don't.
How else would we have gotten to borderline budding? They're not there yet.
But would they have wanted to come here? See, here might be part of the problem. Might be superstars don't want to come knowing there's already two quote unquote what should be superstars here. They don't want to be a third man or have to fight for that attention or the number one spot.
I don't think it's that. I think it's more those two superstars are not fully ready to win yet, and they know that.
And maybe
like
part
LeBron.
of it's Brett Brown.
That's two. But LeBron had a choice. But he knew, do I go with Anthony Davis, who I know is coming here in a year because they talk? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do I know, or do I go, this route? They're not ready yet.
He wanted to be in L.A. too for other reasons.
Like Simmons is 20, exactly, the movies and all that.
Right.
But
he has that production company.
Simmons is 23 and B's 25. He'll be 26 in March. Jordan didn't win his first title to 27. Kobe not till 27. Steph and Clay. Steph was labeled injury prone. They went through this whole deal. Like the Warriors did with they didn't call it the process.
And it's not so much about Ben and Joe for me, because I do think they haven't had the best scenario in terms of coaching with Brett Brown. And I'm probably I'm mislabeling this when I'm saying just the process, because I'm looking at from Hinkie all the way till now, which I shouldn't do. But I'm just looking at this whole time frame of when the Sixers are going to be in the championship in 5 years and this and that time is come and gone. And I'm just looking at the drafts, to my opinion, these past few drafts, which I'm lumping in with the process, that have been failures. You look at Markelle Fultz. They trade up from the number 3 pick to give Boston another pick. Of all people, too, their arch nemesis, and they take the worst player, and Jason Tatum is a budding superstar in this league. And I'll be the first one to say I thought De'Aaron Fox was the pick at number 3 when we still had the 3rd pick, who I would still absolutely love on this team right now. But you just look at that. Look, we don't even have Markelle Fultz. We traded Bridges, who I think could have been a good piece. What's his name's not even anywhere to be heard of.
The key with that was the pick. But you're right. Since Hinkie,
and who
that's
do we
my
get
point. Since Colangelo and Brand took over, they've took any possible asset that's been built and lit it on fire.
Who was the pick before Fultz, the year before Fultz? Was it Bridges? Was he our number 1?
It was Simmons. He was out for the year.
No, was Simmons before Fultz?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's how we were in the tank position again, because Simmons was out for the year.
And then Bridges was last year? Or Thibault was last year and Bridges was the year before that?
Correct.
Okay, so Thibault wasn't a bad pick. I mean, he's fairly
strong
happens,
there. But
right.
But the problem with that is they let the whole league knew they were in on it, and Boston fleeced them on that trade. Really, they didn't have to do it the way they took the earlier pick. They got Carson Edwards. May or may not pan out that guy. But your point, since Hinkie's been gone, they've done nothing but trash the other assets. We could still have Landry Shamet here and that pick, and Tobias Harris never come. Imagine Jimmy Butler, Landry Shamet.
You think,
now we have the
Jimmy
shooter.
would have stayed?
I think he would have stayed if they would have offered him 5 to begin with and just said, we love you so much, we want you to be here, instead of playing games with him. I don't think they fully wanted him here because I don't think Brett wanted to deal with him. But do you imagine and now we still have that first-round pick to go make another move. There's just so many avenues. Imagine trading Okafor, who was borderline Rookie of the Year, that draft, and acquiring a pick in that draft, getting Jamal Murray, let's say. You know what I'm saying? There's so many. I don't know if that could have happened or couldn't have, but I damn sure know they would not have went into that year and plummeted Noel and Okafor's value to 0 before trading.
Well, it's just funny looking at L.A. and you see Lou Williams and Shamet, 2 former Sixers, and then you see, what's his name on New Orleans, the former
Okafor.
Sixer. Okafor and
Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday.
Now, would you take Okafor at the 4 right now? He lost all the weight. He could run the floor. Or spell him now?
I would. I mean, I never really had as big a I got it, why he had to go, but I never had as big a problem as most did with Okafor.
3rd pick in the draft. That's why.
Right. That's why. It makes sense.
That's what drives
But he could always score. He could always score.
Yeah. The expectations are the problem, and the process has ruined our timeline. You know what I'm saying? So we sit and wait through this tank mode. You draft an Embiid and a Simmons, and you expect year 2. We're in year 3 of Ben Simmons, and people expect him to be Giannis.
So maybe,
they forget Giannis took 4 years to even get to where Ben's at now, and just last year did Giannis ascend.
Yeah, that is true. But then people can also give you the example of someone like Tatum, who's in year 2 and just an absolute savage, and could do it all. But I get what you're saying is ultimately like Ben is getting some unfair load of the process.
But has Tatum gone through the playoffs yet? You know what I mean? Has he done all that yet? Because up until year 2, Ben was looking like that. There's a lot of let's complete.
Well, they beat us in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, but not because of Tatum.
Well, it was definitely a team effort. You're right. And they have very good
I'm
coaching.
saying this year he's ascending, but we haven't seen the full picture. He looks like a superstar right now.
He does.
The last 2 years, it was like we could have used him, but now it's looking like real bad.
Yeah.
But we knew it was bad then. You don't trade a first-round pick to move up 2 spots.
To move up? Oh, my God. All right. So I get what you're saying. We've definitely, as Philadelphia fans, have lumped this whole process error into a longer format. Maybe some players like Ben are getting some unfair weight on their shoulders for what's deemed as a process when really it's just the Sixers organization as a whole.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. So let's not call it the process, but let's call this time frame of when they were just god-awful, tanked, to where we are today. In your scenario, I guess if they still make it to the NBA Finals, it's still a success.
If they
Would you say?
get bounced in round 1, I think we're still good. It's just a matter of having a general manager and a coach put shooters around Ben and Joe. It changes everything. You saw that 15-game stretch when you had Bellinelli, Ersan, and I can't think of the other shooter, J.J. Redick with Ben. Now when Ben drives to the lane and finds that open guy that kills us, the 3 goes in, though. And if the 3 goes in, that's changes, which Ben has also got. You've seen him grow this year. He before the injury, that last 10-game spurt, he was getting to the line like 10, 11 times, making like 80% of the free throws. He was driving. Like, he's growing, So I think we're fine regardless. It's just a matter of having some – they caved to the pressure of the fans, jumped the gun on Tobias, let Butler go, and they should have just put shooters around these guys.
I think they definitely got worried with Tobias because they knew whatever bait they were throwing out, nobody was taking. So they're like, we got to wrap up somebody. Redick rolled. Jimmy's probably going to roll. We got to – and I understand that. I understand they got to lock up. I mean, what if they don't lock up Tobias? Then –
at least we have the money to do something else. But you know what? It's because of that trade.
But we can't get anyone to come here. That's the other side of the coin. So even though we have the money, maybe we can get a couple players? I don't know. Maybe not.
You
the
probably
superstar.
could have got like a Chris Middleton or something like that can score for you. There's other young players that are coming available eventually. But yeah,
that's probably what we'd have to do. We'd probably have to take that second tier, which might not be a bad thing. Get a couple second tier instead of one superstar.
To surround around
them.
Sharpshooters around them, that's going to open it up. And then while that's happening, these guys are growing. So now by the time Ben and Joe are 27, 28, 29, which no one wants to hear because we tanked.
Right.
Now, like, if you get rid of these guys now, they will eventually get in their prime, and it will be somewhere else.
This is true.
So, like, to me, it stinks. They're trying to do it all at once, and they did it incorrectly.
So let's foreshadow. So you have them going to the conference finals, or could go to conference finals and potentially losing. I say either first or second round loss. How do we make this team a legitimate contender, which you might argue that they are now, but
not to win at all. No.
A legitimate contender to win it all. Mine would be fire Brett Brown, of course. Well, then the question becomes, well, who do you get in here?
Yep.
That I'm not 100% sure of. I'm not 100% sure of who's available. Whispers of someone like Jay Wright, although I don't think that's going to happen. I'd love that to happen, but
you never know with college coaches. Like, we look at Billy Donovan and Boston's coach. I don't know why I'm forgetting it. Brad Stevens.
Yeah, from Gonzaga.
Yeah, but we forget Butler. But we forget
Butler.
Yeah,
right.
But we forget all the coaches that come and just don't pan out.
Yeah, that is true. A lot of them. How would you make this team better in the offseason, assuming they obviously don't do anything this year in terms of winning it all?
Let's go with your scenario. I would move on from Brett Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's a terrible coach as everyone makes him out to be, but I don't think he's going to get you over the hump. I think he's just a good coach, good developmental guy, and that's about it.
Any ideas on who you might?
I would go get, a combo guard unless Shake's that guy.
Okay.
Until Ben is ready to take a jump shot, which kills us all. I understand that, but you can't just be like, oh well. So you gotta get another guy that can spread the floor there, which will change everything. Then you got to look the market for sharpshooters that are out there. I believe Bellinelli's a free agent again. He still can knock down those shots.
Okay.
Corver was a guy that we could have grabbed that we didn't get. You need available shooting, and then you can find like Landry Shamet was a good draft pick. Imagine if they keep him. So I think it all comes down to shooting, and then to your point, using their strengths, like Joel Embiid in the post, We just recently in this last 10-game stretch seen this lob into the post.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even seen that in other years. He's
Right.
still developing. His post game, you see him make moves in the post. Sometimes he just doesn't move. Like, you don't really see him feel the guy and know what the move is. It might work and look awesome, but he just
But
picked
you're
one.
right. He just
picked one.
He just picks one off the
Top
like
of his
playground shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let
Yeah,
me
he
see
doesn't really back the guy down, get a feel, use a little bit of power, and then like based off his feel, go one way or the other. Like you said, he's just trying like video game shit and
I know this. I practice this. I know I can make this.
Yeah.
Or like a lot of times he'll square up, face to face with him because he's more comfortable that way, and he has success there too. But you're seeing the games they're actually lobbing it into him, which I haven't seen really, and he's having success. He's getting to the line. I think Brett Brown's offense is predicated on spacing and hitting threes, shooting threes. When in reality, you have the best center in the league that's going to get fouled a lot. Get him to the line.
get him to the line. And he's a great free throw shooter.
Right.
All right, so let's talk coaches. Any ideas on coaches and any ideas on any free agent shooters? Because I agree, they definitely need shooters.
Jay Wright, I do like taking the chance. Even though I said you don't know what happens.
I would absolutely take the chance. Yeah.
This is going to sound like a weird one, but I think he's been sitting as an assistant for a long time in OKC. Maurice Cheeks, I would consider.
Butt Cheeks?
Yeah.
Wait, wasn't he a Philly coach?
He was, but he kind of interim in the Iverson era. It was
yeah.
such a mess. Iverson wasn't coming to practice. You know what I mean? He's coached now as an assistant. He's been through Westbrook, Durant. I don't know if he was there when Harden was there. Chris Paul now, he's dealt with stars. He knows that type of deal, and he was a point guard that could shoot.
I like Maurice Cheeks as a person ever since. You've always heard good things, but ever since he helped that little girl get through the national anthem.
Yeah, I forgot
Sixers,
about that.
Yeah, that's a real class act. Yeah, I'd be honestly. I'm just ready for a change. I would be fine with Butt Cheeks. I would take Jason Kidd. Why not?
You got Van Gundy and Mark Jackson, who I'm not.
Their names have been floated around a lot.
And why I like them is I hear them on national.
I think I like Jackson more than Van Gundy, but
at least you hear them on national TV. Why aren't they giving it to him in the post? So at least we'll know
right.
that coach is coming in here with that focus.
That they have the same mindset. Any ideas on shooters?
No,
I don't know who's free agents. Yeah, I'm not really sure who's out there. One of the thoughts I had prior to this season, when people were throwing around all kinds of crazy trade rumors, was like a Ben for a Clay and something else type of thing.
Right.
And I just thought in my head, what a fit that would be for Ben to have the shooter of Clay and the ability of Ben.
Oh, Ben with Clay.
Ben with Steph. Because if a scenario of like it was a trade for Ben for Clay or something like that.
Oh my God!
Imagine that would be like
so
the
good.
perfect optimal setup for Ben to be able to drive and dish out to someone like Steph.
And they have other shooters too there.
And they have other shooters, so that would be like a deadly combo.
That's another thing with the draft. Not to go off, like they draft Eric Pascal out of Nova, like in our backyard.
He's a hell of a player,
right in our back. Like these guys are in our backyard, and they're just going.
He had the highest vertical, DiVincenzo, in the combine.
Gifted.
He's unbelievable, and he's good at defense too.
Yep.
And Pascal's a real stud, man. That's a really good find.
Brunson starting, the other guy, he's on the Bulls, so he's kind of just buying time.
Is Brunson the one to hit the three?
No, that's Jenkins.
Jenkins. That's right. That's right. He's in like overseas or some shit. I heard.
But Brunson was the second time, like the MVP, So that's just the frustrating part of it. But no, I don't know any out there off the top of my head. But
so we'll have to see with playoffs. I don't think it's going to end well. I don't like their brand of basketball that I see right now. The team has a lot of talent. They can definitely hang with some of the best in the league and beat them, but it's just a matter of playing 4 quarters and playing to their strengths and having a strategy and staying focused the whole game, which is where I think with Brett Brown is going to be their downfall.
If you're a Brett Brown lover, I don't see how. And I was always been on the fence with him. I never hated him. You know what I mean? But I see that at this point in the game, I don't see how there's a defense for him.
No, absolutely not. Let's wrap up with a positive note, and I'm going to lean on you here a little bit because I'm not the biggest Flyers fan. I don't know if I'd call myself a fair weather fan. I'm just not as big in hockey. We'll say, though, definitely I try to go to a game a year because going to a live hockey game is awesome. I think
I went
it might.
Friday.
Did you?
Yeah, it was wild.
They win?
Yeah, they won.
Hockey might be the best thing to see live.
It's one of the best.
It's one of the best.
Especially with the Flyers crowd.
A lot of people like baseball playoffs, too.
Oh, that's pretty wild, actually. I remember being the NLCS with the
Yeah.
Phillies. That was wild.
Baseball playoffs is a different atmosphere. That's definitely cool. But hockey's good. The Flyers are going on a tear. So since we're talking hometown, we can end with something positive. I believe they're in second place now.
Second place, yes. They just went on a nice little tear as the Penguins lost
Are on
6
their
in a
descent.
row on the descent. We had a huge weekend against the home and home series with the New York Rangers. And basically, they were, I believe, 5 points behind us. So if they would have won 2, it would have brought us down. They would have been 1 back of us. Instead, we won both Friday and Sunday. So we've catapulted ourselves to 2 with a nice little cushion. And now Wednesday, we'll play the Capitals
Who are in first place.
for 1.
For 1. Now, how far ahead of us? Will this determine first place if we win? Or will we be tied?
We might be. I think we're 3 behind them. I would have to look that up. I should have seen that, but we're close though.
We're close.
It's nothing.
So
they haven't been on fire themselves. They've been kind of. I think they beat the Wild last night. But
and
they
we've
lost
beat
again
them more than
before
we've
that.
lost this year, right? To them, the Capitals.
We had that 7-2 win on a Saturday. It might be 1-1.
1-1. Okay, I thought it was 3-1 for some reason.
You might be right.
I could be right. I could be wrong. So they're looking pretty good.
Flyers are out of the 4 are probably 4th for me too, but I do follow them.
Yeah, with obviously what you do. What do you think their path to the Cup is? If you had to pick
Carter
something,
Hart, you know what I mean? Like we
Strong
see it.
goaltending.
We finally have a goaltender that can stand on his head if needed. We haven't had one really, realistically, since Ron Hextall. We got hot but the one year we went in 2010, we got hot. Who was it?
that wasn't Bobrovsky.
No, we traded him. Then he went and won Rookie of the Year. Or Conn Smythe.
Conn Smythe. Typical.
Can't believe I'm drawing a blank here. We were going back and forth. Maybe it was Roman Czechmanek or Robert Esch. Was it Emery? I don't even. That's my knowledge back then. But we got hot, and But I think this year, back to there, we have Carter Hart. We just acquired 2 veteran centers that are already contributing. You have Kevin Hayes, who's been in this league, and then you have Vigneault, that he's a coach that's been to the finals twice. He's experienced. He's been there. You got veteran players with a nice splash of youth as well.
Which is always which is usually the combo for a successful season. Obviously, you have the veteran leadership, but you have those youth, a couple youth up-and-comers, for a basketball reference, like a Jason Tatum or someone like that to really get you over the hump when you have a complete team. That's why I use him, because Boston has a lot of players that they can kind of mingle in there. Well, a lot of Flyers fans that I talk to say that this season just feels different, whether it's from the eye test, watching the style of play. Obviously, they're making the push, but past seasons the Flyers have made the push. What do you think it is about this team that feels different? Is it because, like you said, they have that mix of young and old? Because they now have that goalie that looks to be the stand-on-your-head goalie that they've been waiting for?
Well, he was hurt for a significant time, and the backup Brian Elliott stepped up and played well. I think, and I was saying this before they went on the run, as far as wild card goes, there's a consistency level that it wasn't one of these in past years, like you said, where we'd make a push, win 10 in a row, but
and then
fall
lose apart.
7 or 8 in a row.
Right.
It's been besides there was a road trip around New Year's Eve, that time frame, they lost 4 in a row. We haven't lost a bunch, but we haven't, we're consistently win 2, lose 1, win 3, lose, 5 and 3, those type of deals, which is more realistic. And right now, we seem to be going on one of them, 10-0 pushes, instead of going from like the, I want to say, 12th seed to be borderline 8 seed to get in. Now we're starting at the 8 seed and now pushing for 1 or 2. So if there's a fall off, we're in the playoffs.
We're still in the playoffs, and you're still in good shape.
You know what I mean?
How many games left? Where do you see them falling? Do you think they take the 1 seed or 2 seed? Or fall a little bit?
You're right. I think they'll
and
be
just your
1
gut
or
feeling.
1 or 2 in the division, but then that would probably be a 3 or 4 seed.
Okay.
I guess realistically,
Who would that line them up with playoffs? Probably roughly.
But that's the thing. That's all.
That
jumbled
could
up too.
be anybody.
So, like, the Rangers now they're falling back now.
Anybody in that bracket that scares you?
Well,
or do you think
the Penguins, because they're on a losing tear? So like, not that I'm scared of them.
You feel like they got to bounce back,
but they got to bounce back. The Capitals are the defending champs. They choked year after year after year. So I mean, maybe they're over the hump and now they're definitely going to win it all, but I could see that. I don't really think there's a team that scares me because I think the Flyers are the team that everyone's like, I hope we don't get matched up with them because anything could happen. They have the goalie. They have the veteran players.
So they have a very legitimate path to the Cup. With that being said, anyone in the other conference that scares you, they go to the Cup.
Oh, and then in our conference, I forgot the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously,
right.
They're always good. But the St. Louis Blues are still on a tear.
Still from their Stanley Cup, which they stole. They got their goal song "Gloria" from a Philly bar, right?
Yep, right after.
Was it a Philly?
They were still in last place. Yep, and they were in last place, getting ready to play the Flyers. I guess they drank with the commoners there or whatever.
Where
Gloria.
was it? It was just like
it's
a bar
in South Philly. Because they were celebrating like they were Blues fans last year. Like people were wearing blue shirts.
Was it a Blues? It was a Blues. Wasn't it some like odd thing where it was?
No, it's a Flyers bar.
It was a Flyers bar.
Just Blues players went in there to drink some beers.
Okay.
And then they ended up
before
saying,
a game,
Gloria.
after a game.
I want to say it was the night before the game.
Okay.
So they were in earlier.
And they may have been watching soccer or something. I feel like was that it?
I don't know about that part.
I don't know.
I just know.
But the Gloria song was the bar, like something they did at the bar.
Yeah, but it had a relation to the Blues as well. It's because the shirts were "Play Gloria," and then it was kind of with the.
No,
Blues
I think
envelope.
that started after their like bar trip.
Okay. So no, you're right. Yeah, they went to the trip.
So they went to,
and then they started playing in the locker room, and then went on the run.
And then that became their thing. It was like that became their song after the goal because it became like this funny thing to them. Like they were drinking at this bar. This bar played the song Gloria, and being drunk, they loved it. They started having a good time there at this bar, and then they were playing it in the locker room, which then they started playing it after their goals, and then the shirt thing all came. It became like this phenomenon.
And then the coach, former Flyer, they fire their head coach, and then the assistant moves up. I think was it Berube or Tocchet? Berube, I think, took over, and then wins the cup.
That's what you got to love about hockey, man. You could be in last place. Some stupid something like that gives you inspiration. Next thing you go on this tear, and you're Stanley Cup champions.
What was our song the year in 2010? That Mac Miller song.
Oh,
let
God.
them in. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
On. Let them in. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Da, 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 da. They would play that, and then we went. We were an 8th seed that year when we went to the Cup.
All right, so hit me with it. Give me your prediction. Stanley Cup Finals. Who's in there? Who wins?
I'm going to be fun here.
Yeah, why not? That's what we're here for.
We're going to go.
I'm going Flyers, and I don't know no better.
We're going to go Flyers, Blues. The Gloria thing's going to be brought up again. And then that bar is going to change to orange and black again like it should be. And the Flyers will win the Cup.
I love it. What is the Flyers? Do you know the Flyers goal song now? I don't even know.
They switch it up every year now.
Yeah.
I wish they would have one consistent one that we just did.
Yeah, they need something with a good theme behind it.
I heard it 5 times on Friday, too. I can't.
It's just not memorable.
Right.
All right, well, that's what we had for you. We got into our NFL recap from our preseason picks. We did a little hometown flavor with the Eagles, the Sixers, Phillies, and Flyers. Fred, where can everybody check you out?
On Facebook, just search Fred Hugo. On Twitter and Instagram, @FredHugo_. And then every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. You can see it on Edge of Philly. Just search them. We do a live show for about an hour and a half. You can see our faces. It's a pretty cool show. We laugh, make fun of each other, but talk sports as well.
Good time. Yeah, those guys do a great job of putting out fresh content for all you Philadelphia sports fans. So definitely check them out. Fred's even doing some basketball. What is it?
The Blue Coats.
The Blue Coats. What is that considered to their farm
Sixers,
team? I guess is that what you call it?
Yeah, it was one of the coolest experiences ever. Right in the locker room, interviewing players, coaches. Sitting with D. Lynam. I had a full conversation with her. You know what I mean? She does the play-by-play for them. It's pretty cool. But yes.
Yeah, there you go. So if you want if you're really into Philly sports and you want that undercover, up-and-coming, you can get stuff like the Blue Coats. You can get some real insight there from these guys at Edge of Philly and Fred. So check him out. Make sure you check out our friend to the podcast, You're Super. And we'll be back soon. Thanks for listening.